Hello there, this is Debbie Heiser, and I am so stinking excited to share this new season 4 with you. And I can't believe that this is already the 4th season of Lead Your Life with Debbie Heiser. And I just want to thank each of you who listen. And my hope is that the tools, the thoughts and experiences I share, as well as the work I've done to love myself, love others, and love the work I'm called to do, that also helps me lead a truly lit up life, will help you move into a more lit up life yourself. A few things to look for in this season. Super excited to share that we're going to be coming to you now every week with episodes jam-packed with information to serve you. Every other week, you'll hear from a guest who's leading a life that they love, and I'll be asking them to share their stories, how they got there, and any thoughts or advice that they can give you, our loyal listeners. We have new music too, and I'm so thrilled to introduce this song called Ride, sung and co-written by my friend, Miss Jackie Wilson. And she, along with her collaborators, Tyler Banks, David DJ Lee, and Chris Renee, are super talented and generous, as this song fits perfectly into the thought of stepping into your best life. To follow any or all of these talented folks, check out the show notes for their social handles. Thanks again for listening. Enjoy season 4 and do us a solid and leave us a rating and a comment to help us be able to share more with people across the globe. Now, let's get started with this episode.
You're the only one who really can transform your mind.
Hey there. Welcome back to another episode of Lead Your Lit Up Life with Debbie Heiser. I am so excited to have you on today. I want to talk about some things that I learned on a trip. Many of you have been following me and know that I spent a week with my business coach in Paris, France. And at the end of March, the beginning of April, and I know this is hitting about June timeframe, but it's actually taken me a little bit of time to process through some things I learned. So we were there, we were doing coaching and had this incredible time, epic adventures that we did. And I do have to say, we in the United States don't know what really good champagne is. I did learn how to taste champagne, all of these fun things that we did. And then I stayed 2 weeks longer with a good friend of mine, and we went to some places outside of Paris into the countryside. And one of the things that I really wanted to talk to you about today is something that I think we in America do a lot of things really right. So when I say this, don't take offense, right, about this. But ultimately, when I think about Paris, and I have my little Eiffel Tower to remind me of Paris and the things I learned, one of the things that I really noticed is that the people in France have a way about them. It's not like Hawaii, where it's like this no worries kind of thing, but around time. And it was not unusual for us to have a 2 or 3 hour meal at dinner. And granted, I get that was going out and a person can't necessarily always have a 3 hour meal. But even at lunchtime, it was never rushed. The waiters or waitresses weren't rushing you. If you were still eating your appetizer, they would keep an eye on it, and they wouldn't put in the main course until they saw you were close to being done with your appetizer. And like just last night, I even went to dinner with a friend here in the States, and our appetizer, we'd had like 2 bites of the appetizer, and here came the main course. And it just shows for me, like culturally, how I feel like, I can only speak for me, but culturally here, it feels like to me that we're always in a rush. And I was talking to my sister about something that hit her about lingering, like we don't linger. And so therefore, how can I find delight in something if I'm not taking the time to take it in? And so what I've really been looking at, and you'll hear a little bit more about delight in the next podcast, but what I'm really taking in is this idea of how we all have the same amount of time every day. Time is a finite resource. We know that. We have 24 hours in a day. There are 60 minutes in an hour, and it just is. But how can we expand time? Not necessarily make more time, but create the time so that we can be in flow. And here's what I mean by that. There is Chronos time and Kairos time. Now, what is that? Chronos time is the clock. It is the fact that we have 52 weeks in a year. We have 7 days in a week. We have 24 hours in a day. We have 60 minutes in an hour, so on, and 60 seconds in a minute, right? That is Chronos time. That's chronological time. And there's Kairos time. And Kairos time, if you think about this, it's if you think about something that you do that you just get completely absorbed and you lose track of time. It might be that you get into a really good book. It might be that you're on a hike. It might be that you're painting, whatever that is for you. For me, sometimes it's playing the piano. And so whatever that is for you, that you lose concept of time, that's Kairos time. That's being in flow, right? And flow is when things are coming to you and it's working, right? And so I've been really giving a lot of thought to, as I experienced the things I experienced when it came to time, right? Like even the morning at breakfast, we would go down and have breakfast in the hotel the first week. And the warning was, don't expect to get in and out in a half an hour like you do in the States. And so ultimately, I scheduled an hour to go down and enjoy breakfast. And, you start out with pastries. I've never eaten so many croissants in my entire life, but, they had a basket of pastries and your coffee. And you took your time with some coffee and pastries. And then because they had green juices, I ordered a green juice and that came out. And so then as I'm about 2/3 of the way through the green juice, she had taken our order. Soft scrambled eggs, by the way, are the bomb. She brings in the fruit. We had like a little fruit cup, and then they bring in the soft boiled eggs and, and anything else that we had with that. And so you took your time, we had conversation, we savored what we were eating, right? It wasn't this, I've got to rush to get somewhere. It truly was this idea of savoring each bite and taking the time to do that. And so what I learned from that and what I took away from that is, how can I then, some things I've done in my past that I want to go back and do. And I'm not big on like going back, right? It's a change of what we're doing. But part of that is, how can I do some hacks with Chronos time to allow for that flow to happen? And so I'm going to give you some ideas, some tactics, some things that I've been doing, some things to look at as far as, how can I get into this Kairos time and have this high quality time, whether it be with people or a project or whatever, because then it feels like I've expanded that time versus I might have more time doing something, but I'm not as present, really is the piece to this. So a couple of things that I've realized too is that I need 8 hours of sleep on a fairly regular basis. And so I have been trying to get to bed at the same time every night. No, it doesn't always work, right? And I'm an early to bed because I'm an early to rise. And so one of the things that I've been trying to do is get up at the same time every day, regardless if it's the weekend or during the week, getting my body into a rhythm so that my physical body then knows kind of what's coming and I'm physically in this place. Now, it doesn't mean, the other night I flew back from Chicago and it was 2 a.m. by the time I got home. I did not get 8 hours of sleep that night, but if I'm getting 8 hours the rest of the week, that then sustains me, because physically I have to be able to do what I'm doing, or it doesn't matter how I use Chronos time. I can't even get into the flow. And so really doing some things, whether it be taking some ashwagandha to make sure that I'm, settling down for my adrenals and all of that cortisol and all of those things that my nutritional therapist knows about. And I try to act like I know about, but it's doing something to make sure that that works. I found, like when I was in Chicago this last weekend, I had my iPad and I was catching up on a show, This Is Us. And I found myself falling asleep, and then I'd wake up an hour later because it stopped running or something else popped on, and that's interruptive to my sleep. So what I realized is that I need to minimize my screen time right before I go to bed, right? Whether it's reading a book or just settling into some meditation before I go to bed. Now, what does that have to do with creating flow and creating this expansion of time? Well, the expansion of time is that if I'm waking up 2 or 3 times in the middle of the night, hearing my iPad doing things, then I'm not hacking my sleep amount to get into that deep REM. The other piece is too, is I'm realizing and I've known this for a while, I'm an early morning person. That's when my mind works the best. And so in order to get to this point, like that's when I'm doing my study time, getting up and getting back to my grounding and doing some study, some prayer, some meditation. That's when I try to create content. That's when I try to do those things that use more of my mind power. Along with that, one of the hacks that I'm looking at is, as many of you know, in the winter, on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I ski in the morning and then come to work. Well, in the summer, it's better for me to work earlier in the day and leave to go kayak. Kayaking is kind of like my skiing in the summer. And being able to go do that, or bike riding, and shifting my schedule allows for the flow to happen a little better. Another thing on a hack that my friend Angela and I were talking about, and I'm not suggesting don't do classes. I love going and doing yoga. I love going and doing classes at gyms. But one of the things that I was thinking about, and that she even brought up, was it takes, if you think about it, you get up in the morning, you put your workout clothes on, you then pack your stuff, you get in the car, you drive where you're going. That's a half an hour, right? And brushing your teeth in there somewhere. And then you go to the class, you're there for an hour. And then by the time you pack up all of your things, you're chatting with people on the way out, you get back into your car and get home, and then get undressed to get dressed for the day. That's an hour extra plus the class, which is 2 hours. So how can I split that 2 hours maybe into walking to the post office and back, creating activity in the middle of the day, and creating activity throughout the day to give myself even some mental breaks so that I'm better when I'm actually in the work that I'm doing. So that's another kind of hack that I've been looking at, as far as how can I choose times to go be active somewhere and give my mind a mental break, get the blood moving through my body. One of my mentors, Dave Meyer, who wrote the Accelerated Learning Handbook, used to say, your mind's not grooving unless your body's moving, because physiologically we got to get blood up to our brain. So that's another way I'm hacking to expand time. So instead of spending that hour in the car driving to a class, let's bike ride to work, let's walk to the post office, those types of things. And then I'm also looking at, like, when I was getting my master's, I would get up at 5 a.m. every morning and I would study for 2 hours. But instead of getting squirreled out because I was worried about the time and I would check my clock on my phone, I would set an alarm and it would go off at 7. I would go up and shower and get ready and go to work. Well, ultimately now I've kind of gotten away from that. And so coming back from Paris, I've gotten into that more again, about setting an alarm around something. Now in my office, those of you listening that are clients, the hack is I have a clock behind my client so I can kind of keep track of the time of where we're at. But I met a client at her new office, and so I said, let me set an alarm so I'm not concerned about what time it is and I can be fully present for you. Because really, ultimately, what I'm talking about is being present in what you're doing, whether that's realizing that I'm mindfully getting dressed for that half an hour to go to a class, and I could be like walking to work or doing something that takes that same amount of time, but using that time in a different way to be present. Another thing, I was having a conversation with someone about them spending time with a young child in their life, and how they normally would have an hour with that person, but they were saying, brush your teeth, do this. They're multitasking and getting ready for the day. And so instead they chose to get dressed, do all of that, and then spend a half an hour playing with this little person and really being present with that child. And so when I think about expanding time, that 30 minutes with that child is going to make a bigger impact than spending an hour where you're on them to brush their teeth or get dressed or put their socks on or do these things. Each person go do those things, then get together and be really present. Another hack, and I know we hear about these things all the time, is that although I will admit I'm not always the best at this, and particularly at this season and this last 2 months catching up after being gone from Paris, but I try to put my phone away. If I'm out at a restaurant, it drives me nuts. And that's kind of why I hate these new QR codes for the actual menu, because it forces people to get on their phones. But once I do that, I put the phone away, because even if it's sitting out on the counter, right? Like it distracts me when I'm eating, and I want to be fully present in the conversation. And so, like, check yourself. Where is your phone? Is it in your purse? Is it turned off? I will tell you, one of the hacks that I started to use actually before I left for Paris is I'm somebody that can squirrel out pretty quickly. Something grabs my attention and it stops me from the flow of where I'm at. And so a hack that I've used, and I'm talking more electronic things. So like on my computer, I do not have where my email comes in and pops up a little message to say you have a new email. On my phone, I use the focus time, for those of you that have an Apple phone, where you can go and actually set it similar to a driving setting where you're focused during these hours, and it doesn't light up your phone or vibrate or anything. It does come through as a notification on your phone. If you open your phone, you'll see it. If it's set up that way, but ultimately it doesn't distract you from where you're at. And so while I'm talking on this video, I'm not distracted because of a text message that pops up on my phone. That's a fantastic hack when it comes to that. Another thing is that when I'm at home, I will set my phone down for an hour and just completely unplug. And more I'm finding I've been attached to my phone because I'm doing more and more business with my phone. And so I really try to be intentional, and have tried more so after coming back from France, to just take the time to take distractions away and really be present. And again, I'm not always great at it, but I'm trying my best. So with that, I think about how you might do something a little different to create space for yourself to think without worrying or getting distracted by other things, being really present with people. I've gotten to the point now too where I have these cards that I carry around sometimes in my briefcase. And if I have something, I'll be like, hold on a second, because my mind doesn't stop very often. And so I'm always having these ideas. And so I'll jot an idea down. Or, if I do have my phone handy, and I'll throw it in a note. But think about those things that you might use as a hack. And what I would ask is, for those of you, I know in YouTube comments are there, on Spotify and iTunes, it's not, but if you see this out on social media, and I'll put this in the post, please add a hack of your own that you use to create more of a flow of time. One of the things I do is when I get creative, I talk about being distracted, but for some reason, I can go to our local coffee shop, shout out to Evans Brothers, and sit there, have a ginger lemonade or a coffee, and sit there for 3 or 4 hours, or an airport, and bang out a ton of things. That's because I'm an extrovert and I need to be around energy when my creativity happens. And I can be super creative there and be really focused on what I'm doing. But the electronic things, that squirrels me out. So think about those hacks that you might have, share them with our community, and let's get some other ideas out there. But really think to yourself, take a deep breath, try to be present, put your electronics away for a little bit. If you're having dinner with a friend or with your family, something that kind of takes those distractions away, allows you to stay in that flow. So with that, that's a wrap. And thank you so much for listening. If you would like to talk to me more about your business, how you would like to step into something new as a new business owner, or you have an existing business that you feel like is running your life and you want to get to a joy-filled, lit up life where you feel like things are in harmony, please, please, please reach out to me. You can find my website in the show notes, or go out to www.leadyourlituplife.com and set up a call with me. What do you have to lose? It's 30 minutes. It's free. Have more conversation. And with that, thank you so much. And we'll talk to you next week.
Find your own kind of happy. See the color